Good afternoon, and welcome to The Teacher, the Librarian. I am Kristen. In today's session, I am joined by Katie, the children's librarian from my public library. Today, we're going to discuss making selections for the children's library areas. These tips can also be used in your own school library. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you.
Katie, first I'd like to know, how do you go about making selections for the children's area in your public library?
Well, there are a couple of things that I do to make my selections. I often go on like the Barnes & Noble website, for instance, and I'll look and see, has the latest book in a series come out? And that's something that we're going to buy. Is something by one of our really popular authors just come out, and we're going to buy that. I also am subscribed to several review blogs, and when they highly recommend a book that I think will fit well in our library, we'll probably add that to our shopping cart. I also periodically go through the collection and look and see if we are missing any specific topic or genre, if we could make that beef it up a little bit. And so I might intentionally buy more things in that area. And then lastly, I also, as I'm going through and looking at our collection, take a look and see how are our classics faring, because there are some books that are just checked out all the time and they get really well loved, and especially with children's books. You know, kids are not always really gentle with books, or they're eating their oatmeal and it gets on the book. So you want to be able to replace those periodically so that everyone has a chance to read a nice copy.
Yeah. Wonderful. I know every librarian is different, but how often do you think you make new purchases? Every month? Every couple months?
Well, we are subscribed to Junior Library Guild, which is a collection development program, and they send us books every month. So that's sort of like we're buying books every month. In addition to that, I would say not quite once a month, but almost once a month, I go through and maybe I'll focus on a specific section, or I will notice that a whole bunch of new exciting things have just come out, and I'll, buy a handful of the new things.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you weed through your collection before you make new purchases?
I wouldn't say that I necessarily do it always before I make new purchases. I do definitely weed. I try and get through every section almost once a year, just to make sure that we're filling in gaps where we need to, or replacing things. And that really does help me know what we need to be spending our budget on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. There are certain areas of the library that you make purchases for, like young adult, junior fiction, your easy readers. How do you divide your budget amongst all those areas?
Well, I wouldn't say that we have a hard and fast amount for each section that we spend. It's fluid at this library. I know some libraries do have it sectioned out. But I just look and see if we are really missing something in a certain area, or one area has grown a lot and I notice that another area has been sort of neglected in the past couple months or the past year. For instance, this year with our nonfiction section, as I've been going through it, realized that it needs a lot of love. Like, our biographies are really old, and a lot of the sports players are 1950s sports heroes. Well, that's wonderful, but our kids aren't necessarily going to know those names and look for those books. So we need to get some more updated biographies, or the space books. Pluto's not a planet anymore, so we've had to update those. So yeah, that's sort of how it works here.
Nonfiction's always changing.
Yeah,
keep them updated. When making decisions on what to purchase, do you go by like a professional review, or do you lean more towards your own personal preference, or what the kids like? How do you go about it?
Well, like I mentioned, I am subscribed to some blogs, the School Library Journal. There's a couple other librarian blogs, they're writing about what they've read and what they like and what's really popular at their libraries. And so I pay attention to those. Horn Books is another great reviewer that I look at. And So that influences what I buy somewhat. Some of it is just, what do we need? You know, sometimes I'll go out and I'll look for reviews on certain subjects or topics, like, dinosaurs or trucks or ballerinas, just because I know that's what the kids want, and I want to find quality literature about those things, not just anything.
To have a book.
Right. I am definitely guilty of leaning towards things that I enjoy reading. So I have to step back occasionally and say, okay, what is it that the middle school boys want to read? As opposed to me, the 20-something librarian.
Right.
So it's a balance act, I think. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. If you purchase a book and it comes in, you look at it, you see the cover, you read the book, and you decide, that's not going to work in here, not in this library. What do you do about it?
Well, if it comes in and I immediately just see that it is not something that our small rural patrons are going to connect with or be interested in, then we can just send it back to the publisher usually. If it's already been through the process of being barcoded and labeled and everything, they're obviously not going to take that book back. It has our name in it now. Yes. In that case, we do have some other libraries in the area where we can call them up and say, hey, we got this book in. We don't really think it's right for us, but would you be interested in taking it? And then we can send it to them if they are. And they do the same thing for us if they get a book or a audio CD or something that they just, maybe they bought a duplicate or they just don't really think it fits, they can send it to us, and that really helps, so we're not just throwing money out the window.
Great communication and collaboration amongst the libraries. Say a patron comes in and gives you a ton of books for children's books, wide range of areas. How do you decide which ones you're going to keep?
Well, first of all, that's very exciting because oftentimes people donate their adult books. So when a box of kids' books comes in, it's like Christmas. But when I'm going through that box, I will look first and see, is it a nice book? Has it been well loved? If it is all crunched up and has dog ears and, then their name is written all over inside of it, it's wonderful that they've loved their book, but that is not something that we're going to put into our collection. So that usually goes either on the sale cart, or if it's just really falling apart, we'll recycle it. If the book is nice and clean, if it's a clean copy, I will then check and see, do we already have it? If we do own it, I will compare the copies and look and see, okay, is the donated copy nicer than our copy? If it is, either I will add it as a second copy, or if the copy that we own has just really been well loved, I'll be able to replace it, and that's wonderful because then I don't have to go and buy a new copy. Another thing I consider with donated books is hardcover versus paperback. Paperbacks are more inexpensive, so people often buy them and have them at home, and that's mostly what we get donated. And sometimes if it's an award winner, I might consider keeping it, but they just don't last as long. And so I'm far less likely to put a paperback in our collection. Something I often do, though, if we already own the book, or if it is a really nice copy of a paperback book, I will keep it for prizes, either for summer reading or for other programs that we have, and that way I'm giving out free books to the kids, and that's always fun and exciting for them.
Because some kids may not be able to afford a book, and this will also help them hopefully get to reading, which will be great. Thank you for joining me today, Katie. I appreciate your time, and I hope this helps some aspiring librarians as it has me. And next time I will be joined by a preschool teacher from my own school district who will discuss on how she uses books in her own classroom. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.